Hi, friends. It's your girl Harpo. Welcome to this episode of Brown Girl Guilt titled You Can't Sit With Us. Now, the title of that episode is a famous line from the movie Mean Girls, which you probably guessed right. This episode, I'm going to talk about mean girls. Mean girls and how we can be mean as girls and being friends with girls who are mean. That's what we're going to talk about in this episode. Now, this season at Brown Girl Guild, we're talking all about teenage fever, and we're taking it all the way back to high school when we were 14, 15 years old, and sort of looking back to that time in our lives to see if there's still remnants of what we were experiencing and feeling at that time in our lives now. And the reason that we're doing that at Brown Girl Guild is because we strongly believe that this not knowingness, this sense of confusion, this anxiety around your identity, and this disconnection with your body that you experience when you're a teenager, it doesn't necessarily end. I mean, that's not to sound like, not to discourage anyone. Not that it doesn't end, but that it's something that you can experience at multiple stages of your life. It could be that you experience that at age 14, of course, but then maybe again at 25, and maybe again at 45, and then maybe again at 65. You can have this not knowingness at multiple stages of your life. And so we're going to look back to that time in our lives to see if there's any lessons that we can pull from, because why would you want to repeat the same mistake again and again, right? No, we're not trying to do that. So this episode, You Can't Sit With Us, is all about my experience with Mean Girls. And, I'm going to be straight up. My experience with Mean Girls was not relegated only to high school. It's something that I feel like I experience all the time, even now as a 25-year-old. But let's go back to high school. I'm going to take you back to my grade 11 year. So I was friends with someone for so many years. And then all of a sudden in grade 11, she decided she didn't want to be friends with me anymore. And I don't even remember the root cause for what that was, like why she didn't want to be friends with me anymore, what her issues with me were. I don't remember. But all I remember is that she didn't want to be friends with me anymore. She didn't like me anymore. And instead of just like making the executive decision with herself, she had to pull in a bunch of girls to support her. And so what that ended up doing was it got a bunch of girls to turn against me. So many of them all of a sudden decided that they didn't want to be friends with me either, because this one particular girl didn't want to be friends with me. And all of them outcasted me. And so, I had a solid understanding of myself up until then, I would say. And then all of a sudden, all these girls were like, no, we're not friends with Harpo anymore. And, they sort of said to me, you can't sit with us. And it was such a weird time in my life because I felt like I had just gotten over, my integration, and, I had just set up a solid group of friends because when I started grade 8, I started at a high school that was different than everybody that I went to elementary school with. So I didn't go to high school with the same people that I went to elementary school with. And so when I got to grade 8, I didn't know anyone. I knew like a few people, some of them were my cousins, but other than that, I didn't really know anyone. And so between the grades of 8, 9, and 10, I feel like I did a really good job of like trying to figure out some friends, or so I thought. And then in grade 11, it all sort of fell apart. And that wasn't the first time that had happened to me. I feel like even if I go back further and I think about elementary school, I'd also shown up to a different elementary school in grade 4. So I did grades kindergarten to grade 3 at elementary school, and then I started a different high school in grade 4. And even then, grade 4 was such a hard year for me because all these girls that I thought were friendly and I thought were cool and I wanted to be friends with clearly did not want to be friends with me. And I remember we would play like hide and seek on the playground, and they would always nominate me as to be the one that was seeking. And they did that so that when I closed my eyes to count down, they could run away. Like they would run away and then I wouldn't see them again for the entirety of the recess or the lunch break. And I feel like they were just mean to me all the time. And I distinctly remember coming home and, just being like really upset all the time and just experiencing so much anguish. And my BB asking me, like, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? And I would tell her, like, oh, the girls are being mean to me. And she was like, what does that mean? Like, she would ask me in Punjabi, like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means to be mean. Can you explain that to me? Because I was using the word mean. I didn't know how to explain to her that, I felt a sense of bullying. I felt a sense of outcasting, isolation, and that girls were just being nasty to me. And all I did was like create, yeah, like a sense of loneliness, confusion. I kept internalizing that there was something wrong with me. And sometimes that's how I feel now too. I feel like even then, while whether it was elementary school or high school, in this case, grades 4 and 11, I feel like at the time I really wanted all these girls to like me. And so I was going, to all these lengths to understand what it was, like what the root cause was behind them not liking me. And I would act like it didn't affect me. I would act like I was above it all. I would act like it didn't even exist. Like I would just pretend like I didn't notice that these girls didn't want to talk to me or sit with me at lunch or play with me at recess. But I wanted so badly to like them, wanted so badly for them to like me that I feel like I started to shrink myself, right? And seek their validation a lot. And I would always try to justify, like I would always try to tell them my side of the story. I remember in grade 11 when all of this started to happen, I remember calling all of them all the time just to check in, just to like see if they were, if they were mad at me that day or what they were mad about. And I felt like I was being really apologetic when I didn't really need to be. And so fast forward to today, I feel like I still meet a lot of women today who don't like me straight up. I know that I've built this beautiful Brown Girl Guild community, and I know that there are a lot of wonderful women in my life, but still, I meet a ton of girls and women till this day who do not like me. And they'll never tell me to my face, right? I think for most of us, we experience people who don't really like us, but we can feel it, right? Like we can feel when someone doesn't like us, someone doesn't vibe with us. And I can always tell, like anytime I meet someone, I just feel like I can sense when they don't like me. And they'll talk shit behind your back, but then praise you to your face. And in my case, often these people are following me on social media, liking everything in my DMs. But then I'll find out from somewhere else that they were talking behind my back. And I really equate this behavior to high school behavior because it seems like some people just haven't grown up. This talking shit behind your back, but then praising you to your face and being all nice to you and like literally sucking like that's the high school behavior, in my opinion. And I feel like sometimes I do meet brown girls out and about and they've automatically decided that they don't like me, right? Which makes me feel the same way that I did when I was in grade 4, when I was in grade 11. Feeling like the same as like the confusion, the isolation, the not understanding. This happens to me so much where I'll literally meet someone for the first time, or somebody that I've only met one time has already decided that they don't like me and that, they'll make all these stories up in their head about what I am and who I am. And, I mentioned this already, but in the same way that I feel like I've shrunk myself for men in my life and tried to make myself small and cater to their, their understanding and their needs, I feel like I've done that for women too. I've always wanted girls to like me. I've always wanted them to feel comfortable around me. And I really wanted to participate in this sense of sisterhood. But I feel like the reason that I was doing that, like very straight up, honestly, is the same reason that I've done that for the men in my life too, is to like not shine too bright so that they can feel at bay, that these girls can feel like, okay, Harpo isn't being too much and she's not taking up too much space and she's not encroaching on my space. And that's really sad. It's really sad that, I've had to do that. And where I was at in my journey as a feminist, I feel like a few years ago, I felt like I was supposed to like every woman that I met. I feel like every girl that I've ever met, I'm supposed to just like because um, like that's what sisterhood really is. That's what feminism is. But I think that my understanding of feminism was so limited and it was so skewed that I thought that that was what had to happen, that I'm supposed to like every woman that I meet because I'm a feminist, because I champion, beautiful spaces for women to express themselves. But that's not really true, right? Like, of course, there's times where I meet women and I automatically love them. Like, for example, in the bathroom at a club when I'm lit, oh my God, every girl in that bathroom is my friend. I don't care if I actually don't like your shoes. I'm gonna tell you I like your shoes. I don't care if I think like, I love every woman that I meet in a club bathroom. And so for the most part, I have, like I like to meet women and I like to be friendly with them. But I feel like I also do it. There's like a sense of there's like a guard, there's a guard that's up immediately when I first meet specifically a brown girl, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but sometimes I meet brown girls in public and I just feel like we end up giving each other dirty looks, like myself included, right? Like we avoid eye contact. We sort of like, we like notice when there's a brown girl in the room, but we're not friendly right away. Like there's like this weird block between us where we feel like we have to like show up and show off a little bit, right? Like there needs to be a sense of distance. And then when you actually end up just talking to them or saying something to them or exchanging a glance, you realize that this weird friction that you had created between the two of you actually isn't even real. Like, wow, she's so nice, or like, wow, I'm so nice. You just, that ends up happening. And I feel like we've just internalized this understanding of brown women as we're moving through. Which I don't think is really healthy, right? It's not healthy. I also think what's unhealthy is this understanding that I had of the feminism, where I'm supposed to like everyone. It's unrealistic. It's just not true. Like you're not going to like everyone that you meet, and you shouldn't like someone just because they fit like a check box of an identity, right? I think what that also does is it prevents us from holding other women accountable, because sometimes we are bitches, like straight up. Sometimes we are being bitches for the sake of being bitches. And we're not allowed to hold each other accountable because, we don't want to say that. We don't want to point that out. We don't want to be like acknowledging that this person is being actually a nasty person. I feel like I carried a lot of guilt for not liking all the girls that I run into, right? I felt like, yeah, like, okay, like I am this strong woman who believes in strength for women, who believes in equal access for women, who believes in creating spaces. I mean, I am the host of a community called Brown Girl Guilt, right? It's for brown girls. And so when I would meet a girl that I didn't really like or I didn't jive with, I carried a lot of guilt because I was like, well, I'm supposed to get along, right? But the truth is that that's not realistic, and we're not going to like everyone, but we're also not going to be compatible, right? We're just not going to be compatible with everyone that we meet. And for me, because in my entire life, like I've lost friends like they're marbles, like they're in my head 1 second and they're not in the other. I just feel like I internalized, for the longest time, that there was something wrong with me because I wasn't getting along with women in the way that I had a different perception in my head and a different understanding of myself in my head, but the reality was far different. Like I would lose friends, I would change friends like changing seasons, and I kept internalizing that maybe there was something wrong with me, right? And I feel like I did that a lot because I would just enter friendships with a smile on my face, but not necessarily checking in with myself first and foremost if this is a person that I actually wanted to be friends with. And if I could go back to this, sense of friction that we experience when we see other brown girls, I feel like sometimes what happens, if I just, okay, pull it back all the way and think about why I'm even talking about Mean Girls right now, is because I just experienced something very recently where I had to remove, some women on social media, because I was just getting sideways energy, like straight up, like I was just getting sideways ass energy from them, and I just didn't want to include them in my orbit anymore. And what bugged me about that entire situation was that, like, to my face, they're really nice. They're always in my DMs. They're always commenting, liking, engaging with my content. And yet I find out from all other people around me that they actually don't like me, that they actually don't vibe with me, and that they're talking down at me, and, making derogatory comments about the way that I choose to show up in the world. And the reason that bugged me so much is not because I cared too much about, what these people are saying about me, because I really don't need the validation of other people. But what really bugged me about that entire situation was that, so if you don't even like me, right? Why pretend? Like, why pretend to like me when you don't actually like me? Why engage with my content? Why still be around? Why still act like you're part of my community when really you don't actually feel that way, right? You're not happy to be a part of my community. You're actually putting me down. And you wouldn't invite someone that you don't like to your house, right? Like you wouldn't invite them to a house party if you truly didn't like them. If they truly rubbed you the wrong way, you wouldn't invite them to your family affairs. You wouldn't invite them into your home. And so it always confuses me why we choose to keep people that we don't like or that don't like us still in our social media space. And so, I did. I removed them. I took them off of my social media. I removed them as followers and I unfollowed them. And, I'm prepared to have that conversation if they were to ever come to me and say, why did you do that? I would say, well, you don't even like me, right? You don't actually even like me. So I don't know why you're upset, because I feel like I did you a favor. I feel like I did you a solid by removing myself out of your life. And in that way, I feel like we turn into the aunties that we talk shit about. Straight up. We uphold this persona, right? I always look at some of the aunties in my family, my mom included, who don't actually get along with a lot of the family members in our lives, or like, they don't they don't get along with some of the relatives, and yet they're still upholding this sense of fakeness, right? This like showing face. And I never understood why the elders in my family and in my community did that. Like, I just don't understand why you would continue to put yourself in spaces where you don't actually feel good about these people and these people don't feel good about you, right? It's so toxic. And then I feel like while I was so busy judging them and looking at them, I didn't even realize that we are turning into those people too, right? I've known that these people that I removed don't actually have the best interest in mind for me. They don't actually like me. They don't vibe with me. They don't support me. And yet I still kept them around to show face because I felt like removing them would open up this conversation, this dialogue, this space where I would have to have an uncomfortable conversation. And so how was I any different than any of the aunties that I'm constantly making fun of, right? I feel like I know this, and yet I'm still participating in it, right? And so I think what we have to do when we experience that sideways ass energy, right? When we get the vibe, because straight up, vibes don't lie. Energy doesn't lie. You might convince yourself in your mind that so and so actually has the best interest for you and that so and so is not a mean girl, but your energy will like your body will know the energy, right? Your body will pick it up. And so when that happens, what we have to do is we have to set boundaries, right? We have to set boundaries, and we have to address the sideways as energy with ourselves. I'm not as saying that you have to go and have a conversation with this person who is being mean or is sending all this mean energy to you, but you have to sit down and sit with that feeling of that isolation, that confusion, that thinking, that you're not good enough, and internalizing that, I don't know why this person is sending me this energy. I don't get it. What you have to do is you have to remove yourself. You have to catch yourself when you're having those thoughts and set boundaries so that these people are not acting this way, and impacting you as much as they are, right? I feel like I always gaslit myself. I always was like, well, no, like, I think you're just thinking of it in a way that's not really real. I think you're just taking it too far. You're overthinking it. But no, straight up. And like, why should it take somebody else coming to you and telling you that, hey, so and so was talking about you behind your back to really solidify it for you, right? And I feel like what we also have to get clear on is that people being mean to you, people truly talking shit behind your back, giving you this sideways ass energy, being nice to your face, but then not being nice to you, like in essence, like not participating in the goodness of your life and not sending you love actively, is not a reflection of you, right? I say that to myself all the time. I have to sit there and be like, when someone doesn't like you, Harpo, and you have done absolutely nothing, like if there's not one thing that you can think of actively that you might have done to annoy this person, to hurt this person, to upset this person, if I can't think of anything and they're still acting this way, it has nothing to do with me. It's actually a projection of their own insecurities because, perhaps your light shines so bright, or perhaps you're so authentically yourself and so committed to being yourself that actually looking at you, being you, reminds them that they're not themselves enough, right? And that, it's easier to make you feel isolated and confused and to be mean to you than it is to be mean to themselves. And I always think that, when it's actually really sad, like when people treat you this way, think about how might they be treating themselves, right? Like if they're speaking about you poorly, then they probably are speaking to themselves poorly. And that's actually an invitation for us to extend more love, right? Like I'm not resentful to any of these people who talk shit about me behind their back or behind my back, who have this weird, nasty, toxic energy that they're constantly sending to me. I don't resent them. I actually, in turn, want to send them more love because, I don't feel that way about people. Like, I don't sit here and marinate and fester in negativity for other people because I'm so focused on loving myself and so focused on being present with myself and my emotions and my life that I don't even feel like I need to think about what other people are doing or send them sideways ass energy, right? And so, I don't do that because I have a strong connection with myself. And if people are doing that to me, it's because they might not have a strong connection with themselves. And instead of sending them negativity back, instead of sending them resentment and anger back, why don't I just send them love back? Right? Because they need it. They need it more than we do. And so I just want to end off. I mean, yeah, like I went really all over the place with that, right? Like talking about the mean girls and then talking about bringing them love. The one thing that I will say that I feel like we have to do is we can send them love, but from afar. Like, we do not have to stay in any situation. You do not have to continue to engage with and hold space in your orbit for people who treat you like shit, okay? Or are sending you sideways ass energy. And so, what I love to say is that the peace sign and the Genji sign is the freaking same. Think about it. Hold up a peace sign out in the air as you're listening to this. It's the same shape as a scissor. It's the same shape as a genchi. And so when you genchi cut someone and they're negative, like negative, nasty ass, gunky energy out of your life, you actually experience a sense of peace. And what it does is it creates so much more room and space in your life for more people who actually love you to come in. Like, ever since I removed these people on social media, I feel great. I feel like there's like a lightness to me because I'm not constantly thinking about how they're going to receive what I post or how they're going to receive me in my expression. And it's not just social media, right? Like, if you just choose to stop going to these people's parties and hangouts or inviting them to your things, like just cutting off their crusty ass energy and access to you, you experience so much peace. And in the words of Jeevan Senga, who is a producer here at Brown Girl Guild, she thinks we need to be more liberal with the block button. I'm not there yet. I don't really block people because I don't really want to, completely remove them and cut them off and, like really prevent the opportunity for growth in the future. But in her words, be more liberal with the block button. And what I'll leave all of us with is be more liberal with the way that you experience peace.